A is for Alcoholic is a program about recovery. My name is John, and I'm an alcoholic.
And my name is Jerry, and I'm an alcoholic.
Join us as we go through the alphabet of alcoholism, one letter at a time. A is for Alcoholic. We are here. We are back. We took a little bit of a break.
Pew, pew, pew. That's my foghorn. No, my air horn. My celebration air horn. Pew,
Yes.
pew, pew. We back.
My name is John Staley. I'm here with Jerry Wagner Jr. as always. It is a podcast about recovery, about alcoholism, addiction, dealing with it on a daily basis, on an hourly basis.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I think one of our mission statements is really, or one of our mission statements, I guess, yeah, it could be a mission statement, is that, whatever recovery program that you are involved in, we have to leave it at a certain point. We have to get to the work of life on a regular basis. And so a lot of our conversations deal with just dealing with that daily life that doesn't revolve around our recovery directly. At least that's our hope.
Right. I like mission statement better than manifesto.
Manifesto
Here's our manifesto recovery.
Mm-hmm. It seems a little intense.
It does. That's why I like mission statement. Seems a little softer. The softer, smoother way.
The softer, smoother way. The softer, smoother caramel way.
We're like the yacht rock of recovery podcast.
Yes.
We're just here to...
We are.
Yeah, we're here to slide on in, nice and satiny. Nice and satin. And on our yacht, there's no Coke. There's no whiskey. There was at one point, but then we threw it all overboard.
We did. We did have to throw the Coke and the whiskey overboard.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Now we fuck with banana bread. We fuck with banana chips.
Yeah. Well, I got to be careful with the banana chips these days, Jerry. I can't eat too many. I mean, I haven't had a banana chip in a very long time because I would buy like the whole
there's
bag.
A lot of sugar.
There's a lot of sugar.
Mm-hmm.
So I think too, like, I've been having some difficulty. I know this is not related, but I thought I would be losing a lot more belly fat. And I think with like the quarantine and then the injury I had at the beginning or the end of last year, and like I haven't really like been able to, and I was thinking because I was doing all these sit-ups, not a whole bunch of them, and I was like, maybe I'm just like my abs are getting bigger underneath my belly fat, and that's all.
It could be. You got to push on your ab, and then you can feel them under there. Because I don't have visible abs either, and I'm like, man, I really got to cut like 5 pounds, but I'm already I'm already at like my base. But yeah, I think that's what it is that they hide out under. So you just know that you have the core strength. You just got to know it in your heart and in your head. Yeah.
And I just feel like I'm getting a little more like an old man barrel chested look is what's happening, you know?
Yeah.
Like...
Oh, you're getting the Putin.
Yeah, basically.
You walk around looking like Vladimir, like Putin, just that. Putin. Or like Christopherson. Like Chris Christopherson in that Blade 2 movie that I just watched with those guys. I wasn't even trying to plug the podcast. I was just looking at it like, yo, he's got an old man body. I guess I'll plug that. I did a podcast with a group of friends, and the podcast is called Harmless Phosphorescence. They review and comment on every superhero movie ever made. So it's like 150 movies. And they're doing it all in the chronological order they've been released. So they hit the 2000s and they hit me up. I watched Blade 2. It was wild as fuck. Christopher Christopherson has a barrel-chested body. And he's tan. He's real tan, man. Yeah.
So that's what I think I'm becoming. Is I'm going to start becoming Christopher Christopherson if I don't do something with the. Well, I just want to lose a little bit of the belly fat, and I don't think that's sit-ups. I think I'm just eating too many carbs and not enough protein. Even if I stay within the, like, and I haven't really been like super strict on the calories. Like I count them, and I go running some days, and like I burn. Anyhow.
Do you feel strong though? You feel better?
I do feel strong, and I do feel better, and I guess that's what's most important.
Right? Yeah, it's not like you got to dust off the beach body in 2020 because that shit ain't happening for a while. So,
right?
Yeah, dust off the beach body in 2021, dude.
2021. All right, I'll be ready for bikini season.
I'll
next
come
year.
down there. We'll micro that shit. Get real ugly with it. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So today's we do again. I guess I should tell you if you haven't listened before. We go through the alphabet. And we pick a letter. We go through. Well, we do it It's not alphabetically. It's called an alphabet. You go alphabetically. And so today's A. We're gonna start the new season with A, and it's for Ain't It Funny? I think is what we said. And basically just the idea, talking about comedy and humor in recovery and why it's important. Later on in the show, we did talk with comedian Jeneta St. Clair, and she gave us some insight into being a professional comedian and being a professional recovered alcoholic. Or I don't know if professional is.
I thought you were gonna say professional alcoholic, and I was like, dang.
Well,
hey, John. But yeah, just in recovery, yeah.
And I don't think that anybody's really. I mean, I should say I don't think I was ever. I remember I would say things like I used to be really good at drinking, but I don't think I ever was. I think I just thought that. Right?
I say it all the time. And I don't, now that you bring it up, I don't think I was very good at it either, because if I was good at it, I wouldn't be sitting here doing a podcast with you about it.
Right. That's,
well,
that's
maybe, I don't know, right? Like, can you be good at being drunk?
I feel like there's a period, a brief, not even. I mean, I'm trying to think of like when I first started at like 17, 18, 19, I wasn't good. Maybe there was a short period where I was once I went out to bars regularly and kind of had it dialed in. But even then, the dialed in part would get thrown out the window as soon as I had too many, and then it was like, fuck it, let's just rage.
Yeah.
And what a terrible word for like having fun. We're just gonna fucking rage, bro.
We're gonna rage. Yeah. It's almost like falling down. Like if you took a picture of someone who was in mid-fall and you had that one still image, it looks beautiful, but then you replay it and they just eat fucking shit. You know what I'm saying? Like that's how I feel like me saying I was good at drinking was. Like it was one brief tiny moment that meant nothing. It really was just a blink of an eye where I was like, because even where you said I had it dialed in, it's like, had what dialed in? Like how drunk I could get. Do you know what I mean? Like the way we think about it, the way we approach it. You know, is someone who's good at drinking just like someone who has a glass of wine, doesn't even get a buzz, and they're like, cool, perfect, I'm going to bed now. You know, or is it someone who can drink a fucking entire bottle of whiskey and fly a plane? You know, I don't know.
And I think there's just this idea of being over the top and being fun and being exciting, right? That's part of like being good at it. Is I could be the life of the party. And then when was I ever really the life of the party? I mean, I suppose people would think that for a brief period before I just turned into a mess, before I drank drinking gin out of a plastic jug and my pants are down around my ankles.
Well, I mean, in the moment, you were always the life of the party to me. Even during the fireworks, I was like, oh, John's a shit show and this is great. Which is kind of now in hindsight, I'm like, you're a fucking dick, Jerry. You know, like your friend was like really wilding the fuck out and you thought it was like, because I used to think it was funny. That was my appeal. It's like, I'm going to hang out with John. I'm going to make sure he doesn't go to jail or get beat up. So I'm being a good friend. But, you know, he's going to fucking get drunk and weird and we're going to write all over him.
Right.
I'm going to think it's funny. And then, yeah. I remember having a moment of clarity one night during one of your birthday parties where everybody started writing on you.
With markers,
the Bit Saloon, with markers. That was the whole bit, was John would get drunk, fall asleep, and everybody would write on him. And it, like, disturbed me. It, like, pissed me off. Like, before I thought it was funny, but then when other people in a big group started doing it, I was like, that's fucked up. Like, that's, like, I almost felt it was very dehumanizing to you in that moment. But then I got real fucking mad about it and, like, wanted to fight someone and then drank some more and forgot. You know what I'm saying?
I remember that night, well, some of it. And I think, you know, the idea was like, I'll be a human birthday card and you can say happy birthday to me on my body. And like this, because I think part of it was I was trying to feed this need to be the center of attention. And so I would, you know, this was come up with some way to get everybody to show attention to me, even if it was not positive in any way, shape or form.
Right.
And, you know, there was some video of it taken and I remember watching it later and like seeing this like moment of clarity in my own eyes of like going like, what the fuck am I doing? What like just for a brief moment, like waking up out of that fog covered in Sharpie and on my 30th birthday, you
That's
know,
what it was your 30th birthday. Yeah.
Wanting to have a big blowout, you know? And it's just really sad. Like, and I have the little DVD, whatever here. I suppose I don't know that I should digitize it for, commemorative sake, but I mean, I don't know. Maybe I should. I don't know. I don't know whether this stuff's worth keeping or not.
I mean, it's all part of your
visiting.
story. I mean,
Right.
even if it's the part you don't have to really revisit if you don't want to, but I don't
Right.
know. I mean, I watched my wedding video recently. Well, during our last anniversary, sat down and watched it, and I was just like, what the fuck? Like, and we've talked about that before on this podcast, but yeah, some of it was really funny though, and that's where we go to the laughing part, right? Because we did laugh about things while we were drinking. I think a lot of our relationship was based in like really dark, kind of fucked up gallows humor. And through our recovery, I think we still have that type of gallows humor, but it's less at the expense of other people's misery and more at the expense of our own misery. You know what I'm saying? At least that's how I feel about it. Like previously when you and I were drinking, we would talk shit and fuck around and make fun of other people and it was funny. But now that we're sober and we joke around with each other, it's still kind of dark. I think it's still pretty dark actually, but it's more of us kind of our shared experience is more the subject, the meat of the meal, so to speak. You know?
Right. I rarely am I making fun of somebody else, and if I do, I often will. I mean, I think that I catch myself and I'm like, hey, especially when it comes to alcohol, right? Like,
right. Yeah.
Be like, oh man, that dude's fucking wasted, you know?
Right.
And part of me, I feel bad for that person. I might make a joke or crack a joke or even have a funny thought, but ultimately I either want to remove myself, like, yeah, I know exactly where that's at. I don't want to make fun of it, nor do I want to engage in it. It's like, yep, he's got to go. It's kind of like when in that episode of The Simpsons where Homer eats the chili pepper and has the acid trip.
Yeah.
And
just watched that the other day.
I think Ralph tries to stop him, or somebody goes, hey, Mr. Simpson, you forgot this, you know, hey, you something like don't go. And Otto grabs Ralph by the shoulder and says, let him go. He knows what he's doing.
He knows what he's doing. Yeah, he knows what he's doing.
Like Otto knows about having a trip, and you just kind of have to let
trip. Yeah.
Yeah. But that's kind of how I feel now. I go, well, he knows what he's doing, and even if he doesn't, he'll have to figure it out one way or another eventually.
Right.
But far be it for me to poke fun at him.
Right.
So I think that a lot of the humor when it comes to my alcoholism is definitely all at my own expense, and not to be mean to myself, but it's like, Jesus Christ, John, whoever that person was, which was me, but that I have to find some kind of humor in it to be able to look back on it and not be in pain all the time.
You have to realize also how absurd the whole situation is. And when we were, I was thinking about how humor is, for me, this great coping mechanism. It is part of my coping mechanism, and how fucking absurd it is, and how dealing with pain and trauma, which, we talk about being, for some of us, being the root of our alcoholism, or at least the spark that ignites that alcoholism, or the way to cope with that. Like the other day, I fucking shinned myself really hard on this giant coffee table we have. I barked my shin hard, like really hard, to the point where I was almost in tears, and I haven't almost cried from being in pain since I was a kid, but I could feel like the tears welling up, and it was just so absurd that I was, you know what I mean? That I just started laughing at it. It was so funny. And that was my coping mechanism, was almost like the laughing made it feel like it made it hurt less, And I feel like that's a lot of when I sit in the rooms and hear people talk about how fucked up a situation is, and we all laugh at it, whereas a normal person would kind of balk at it, or be offended, or just be shocked at what we're laughing at, because that's our coping mechanism. We've sat in that trench, I've sat in that hole, I've sat on that anthill, Yeah.
I want to read you this one little joke that I found that I thought was pretty funny. An alcoholic wakes up in jail. He asks the police officer he sees, "Why am I here?" "For drinking," replies the police officer. "Great," says the man. "When do we start?" And it's this whole, I think what it pokes fun at, and what it exposes, is the level of oblivion and denial and obsession, right? That we could be in a moment where we're in jail, and we don't fully realize the seriousness of our situation. And so And that's how it always was. It was like, well, whatever the problem was, fuck it, let's just drink.
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh, don't worry about it, man.
Yeah,
it's
that's
cool.
the way I cope. That's the way I'll deal with it. I'll just get fucking loaded and it'll pass. It's just like the way I paid my bills. I just didn't. I did it, and then they would put me in collections, and then I'd be like, "Keep calm, baby." Sometimes I'd answer and be like, "Can't get blood from a stone," and hang up on them. And I thought if I ignored the bills long enough, they would just go away. And it was almost like, no, I mean, motherfuckers are still hitting me up for shit I didn't pay like almost 20 years ago, because they just keep selling the debt, But
right.
And I've tried really hard to get on point. There's still a few things, but anyway, this isn't about that. But it's that ignorance, that not ignorance of not knowing, but the willful ignorance of not wanting to know how bad it can get, or not, you know what I mean? The denial of how bad it is. You anesthetize yourself against it. That way you don't have to deal with it.
And I think that part of what you're talking about is inventory.
Yeah.
Opening up the book, seeing what's really going on there. And I think that humor probably helps us get through some of our inventory sometimes.
Well, yeah. What else are we gonna do? Like, what else are you gonna do? Just sit around and be fucking bummed about it? Yeah, you're allowed to be bummed about it, but that's it. That's your one thing. Is just I'm always bummed about, or I'm always serious or bummed, and it's like, damn, dog, really?
Yeah, it's not. And I think, like, when you're sharing your inventory with somebody else, when you're telling somebody, and they come back at you with like, really, that's it? Well, let me tell you, I did something twice as bad. And you're like, oh shit, that wasn't that bad at all. That was kind of funny. And it's always funny in retrospect, because there's things like, I don't really love all of my, I haven't really come to terms with all of the stories of my drunkenness. And we've talked about some of them, about me like exposing myself to a fucking restaurant full of people.
I'm sorry, it's still funny to me though. I know for you, you're like, this is a hard thing, and I know it's not supposed to be insensitive on my end, but how absurd that shit is. I'm like, nobody can see my expression. I'm just like, fucking really, John? Like,
basically what happened is, and I think we've already talked about this, and maybe I just need to talk about it over and over and over until it doesn't bother me anymore. But
the whole podcast will be a different retelling of you mashing your dick on a window of a restaurant.
There was a big window. I was outside on the street, and I just unzipped and I mashed my genitalia against the window to a room full of people eating dinner. I was so drunk. There was no purpose or point to it other than to do it. Right. And then at some point I was at some other club, some music club. And I remember my friend grabbing me and saying, the police are looking for somebody who exposed themselves to the restaurant, and like throwing me, and the cops didn't come get me, but my friend took me and put me in the back of his car and said, get on the floor, I'm going to drive you home. Yeah. And that was it. And I feel ashamed and I feel embarrassed, and maybe I shouldn't anymore, because that was in 2006 or 7?
Yeah, that was at least 7, because I was living in Seattle at the time. You were up on Capitol Hill. It's not like the Seattle Police Department was like, we got an APB out on the guy from Modern Family. He just mashed his dick into a window.
Basically. So, like, I think part of me, I feel like I got away with it and I shouldn't have. Right. And there's some guilt in there. I don't know. I mean, I don't know. Again, that was 13 years ago. So, but you're right. You're like, it's stupid. It's funny. Like, I got away with it, whatever.
I mean, I think.
But it was a serious thing this is not behavior. This is fucking criminal behavior.
Correct. And it's also in the way that you perceive it, the way you look at it, and the way you're processing it. And to you, it was unacceptable. You feel shame about it and embarrassment about it, and you have every right to feel that way. Like, if you feel that way, you should. And I'm not going to be the one to be like, well, you shouldn't feel that way, because you own your own feelings about it, and whatever amends you have to make. Or now we're going to get thick into this program talk, doggy. Like, whatever amends you got to make, I guess you got to make them, or I don't know. At least
that's the part. That's the thing that troubles me is I don't know how to make amends for that. I don't know who to talk to. I don't know who to say I'm sorry to.
So that would be one of those things. I guess you just got to make amends to yourself for
you making is that what they call?
What do they call it?
A living amends, where you just live.
So, yeah. You just don't do that shit anymore, which I know you won't because you're not like that anymore.
No.
We are all in recovery because of our lives becoming unmanageable, but also I think due in part to the mistakes we have made in the past. Like you just don't quit drinking because everything is peachy. You know what I'm saying? Like you did a lot of bad shit and that's why you're here. You know, that's why we're all here sitting here talking to each other about it and trying to figure it out. You know, there's a lot of shit I've done during my drinking career that I am incredibly uncomfortable with. And I have to and there's no amends I can make. Like you said, a living amends. And so I have to tell myself those are behaviors I cannot do or I won't do. But they're not even they're not even in our wheelhouse for either of us.
No.
Like we both aren't those same people. Everybody grows and changes, you know? And I don't know. I think getting sober is like the biggest change both of us have made because it was like a whole different path, you know? But I think I can still laugh about it on my end, and I don't mean to be insensitive, but I apologize because I know this is something that bothers you, and then I'm like, ha, 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 you know, but I always felt like that's been the dynamic of our relationship too, and maybe that's my excuse for being so mean, but I think it's just we have to kind of look back on those things and be like, yeah, what you did was gross, but I mean, to me, I'm still like, yeah, it was kind of fucking funny though. I mean, now I wouldn't think it was funny, but for Jerry back then,
right.
Yeah.
I think too, I mean, our dynamic was always my dynamic with most people, but I think especially with you was like, I think this guy's cool. Like he's my friend. I like him. Like we hang out together. Right. You know, but I mean, I don't, at the risk of sounding corny or stupid, like that's part of the dynamic and if I make him laugh, he'll think I'm cool.
Right. Where the whole time flipped it on my end and I was just like, John's really fucking funny and he's smart and like he possesses this kind of abandon that I wish I had. Right. Like I wished I could do stuff like that you were doing because I always felt like you were this like Hunter Thompson-esque even Kerouac-esque kind of like figure to me, this Bukowski kind of like you were willing to get in touch with this side of you that I was afraid to. So I was always like, oh, John can be like a real fucking animal and like not give a shit that people are like really fucking off put by it. He just doesn't care. He's just expressing himself as he is. So we were like on both ends because I was like, that's really cool. Sure. Like I want to do that shit, but I can't because I'm so self-aware and I'm always looking at what I'm doing and so fucking self-centered. I can't. Like I'm afraid, you know. So
yeah. So it's just and I don't think that I think I was less. I was trying to get in touch with something, but I was really doing it in such a bad and ill thought out and not unrefined, although it was very much unrefined. It was just I wasn't really in touch with anything. I was just like acting out in a way that, because inside I didn't feel that way. Inside I felt, sad and depressed and alone and small and all of those things. And so I think more like the humor in the recovery of it is so that I can accept those parts of myself a little bit more. If I can make fun of it, if I can feel light about it, then I don't have to carry it as much.
Right.
Because sure, there's shit that I've done, and like you said, embarrassing, shameful, guilt-ridden stuff. And I was there at your wedding, and I was on that video, and I have a couple of pictures, I think. But it was just like for me, it was a big drunk fest the whole week.
Well, it was for me too.
Yeah. So it was an excuse to party.
Right. As weddings usually are.
Right. Yeah. And not that to say that your wedding and your marriage and your relationship are not something that is, I don't know, valuable to you and to me.
No,
and
I know. Yeah.
But it was just like, fuck it, whatever.
It was to me, it was a day to get fucked up. But the significance of getting married to me was never about the day I got married. It was always about like the relationship I'm going to have after the day I got married, you know. I
Mm-hmm.
never understood that whole, I mean, this is kind of on a tangent, but I never got that whole idea of like the wedding day is the most important day of my life. And I'm like, nah, I mean, that's not socially tied in with me. Like the
Mm-hmm.
wedding day was a day for me to get trashed, you know.
Mm-hmm.
Now sober, if I, you know, we ever got remarried or whatever, I mean, it would be a very somber, quiet, dark event, you know. It would be very religious.
Mm-hmm.
That would be the same thing. It would just be a different kind of party. You know what I mean? It
Right.
just wouldn't be a let's get fucking blitzed and let's go on a fucking 5-day bender in the Arizona heat, you know?
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, those things are we did some embarrassing shit, and a lot of people did too, you know, in their past as well. But I
Mm-hmm.
try my hardest to look back on it and just kind of laugh at the things I feel like are appropriate to be laughed at, you know. And the other things I just kind of like have to, I don't know, reconcile with them, you know, make
Mm-hmm.
them right in any way I can, or make them right in any way that's possible, you know.
Yeah. I
Yeah.
mean, I keep thinking back to that moment. I don't know if I could call the restaurant and say like, "Hey, back in 2007, I exposed myself to a restaurant full of people there, and I just wanted to say I'm sorry."
They're probably closed at this point.
Right? I
Yeah,
mean,
they probably closed before COVID. You know that, right? Like a restaurant on
mhm.
Capitol Hill, like those shits don't
I
last
think it
very.
might have been part of Chop or Chaz or
I
whatever
think it
there.
is. I think it is part of Chop
It's
now.
right there. Uh-huh.
Yeah, it's still got
Um,
your dick print on the window.
Jesus. Yeah. See, it's so but I still find a lot of the humor in AA or in recovery very funny, right?
Yeah,
Because it helps us commiserate. And later when we talk to Jeneta St. Clair on the program, she talks a lot about finding connection. And
mhm,
that's something that I think that we can all everybody laughs, right? Well, most people, almost everybody laughs, and we understand what a laugh is. Like you don't even
right.
have to speak the same language, right? And everybody understands like, oh, that person is laughing because of joy or something funny or,
Right. Mhm.
whatever. And so I think that that is something that really helps bring people together. And there's also um when I hear somebody make a joke about something awful that they did, there's a certain it kind of takes the weight out of it and it kind of helps me feel a little more relief
Yeah.
more than anything else.
Yeah.
Is this sort of like,
It really does.
oh,
Yes. It like pops the pressure, you know, like yeah.
hmm
It's like that instant pot. Have you cooked with an instant pot yet?
no, I
They have a
haven't. It's just a
natural, it's
rice
like a
cooker, right?
pressure cooker. No, it's
Okay.
bad. It is like a rice cooker, but it's badass. But they have it's called the natural pressure release where it cooks for a minute at a time and then it clicks open and lets all the steam out and you can just it's that same kind of it's me using a long analogy. It's me pretty much humble bragging that I got a fucking instant pot, you know. But yeah, it's just it lets all that tension out of the room, which is great. Cuz have you ever noticed in a room, and I don't want to break anybody's anonymity or get too deep into it, but in a room when someone's sharing and they really fucking push and they have a breakdown, they start crying, and everybody in the room feels it.
Mhm.
And we're either coming out with empathy or we're coming out with tension because a lot of us are really uncomfortable with other people showing emotion. I'm incredibly uncomfortable with other people showing emotion, and that I don't think it's wrong for them to do that. I just don't know how to react, right?
Right.
But then while they're crying, sometimes they'll kind of laugh at themselves, like to push that tension out. Do you know what I mean? It's like a natural kind of
hmm
cracking of the muscle or cracking of the joints. It's like this natural like almost every time I've heard someone kind of get into it that way and then just start laughing, like chuckling themselves, be like, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to do this, you know. And we do live in a
hmm
society where we're allowed to laugh in front of each other, but we're not allowed to like really push out those sad things, you know. And I'm really uncomfortable with it. Like I'm uncomfortable with me crying. Even when I'm alone, I get pissed off if I'm feeling sad and I start crying. So if
hmm
I'm breaking up, like it's a fucking storm. Like I'm trying really hard to not break up. So I guess my point is it is that kind of smoothing out of things, you know, that kind of like, okay, we're gonna smooth this out now. It's gonna be all right.
Yeah. It's true, and we need it. I mean, we've lived these lives where everything's been under pressure and everything's been so hard, and we think about. I think we think when we're drinking, at least I did, where that was the release valve, right?
Right. Hmm.
Oh, that's what I needed. And um, when in all actuality, the only relief I was getting from alcohol was the fact that I was addicted to alcohol, and it was
Right.
bringing relief to that addiction, not to any other problem in my life, not to any physical ailment. I mean, sure, if I drank enough, I wouldn't be able to feel the gout in my foot,
Right.
you know,
Right.
or whatever it
Some
was.
relief, right. Yeah.
Jesus. But like that that was the thing, is it was only bringing relief to the addiction. It wasn't bringing relief to anything else in my life. And
Right.
I feel like laughter really brings that out, is that you're able to, like, if you can laugh at something, oh, it's easier. It's not as heavy. And that's the thing that I think a lot of recovery for me was, here's all these heavy things and wanting to let them go, and figuring out a way to let them go, and figuring out a way to release them so that I don't have to carry them. You know, we talk about, part of that is a part of like the higher power stuff, right? Is, oh, here, you've said it, like, here, God, I can't carry this. Can you carry this for me for a little while?
Yeah.
And that's all it is saying, like, here, somebody else carry all this shit so I don't have to worry all the time, because I don't want to worry all the time, and life sucks when you worry all the time.
Yeah.
And it's not helpful. You're not helpful to anybody if you're always stressed and worried.
Right. Right.
You know, we talked about it before, and you were watching a lot of news lately, and the news lately
is fucking me up.
I don't need to tell most people about what's going on in the world. I mean, it's basically being broadcast 24/7 on.
Right. If this gets put into the archives and you're listening to this in like 2021, 21, 22, yeah. Yeah, back here in 2020, some shit went fucking wild, pretty much. Everything went wild, or everything.
Basically.
Yeah.
Pandemic revolution.
How trippy is this, right? Because this will be just floating around out there in the ether on the internet or whatever. And we were talking about history and cool zones, right? It's always you tell me about that. And like, people will be able to hear a recorded account of what's happening right now, you know, where they're like, oh, there's this great COVID-19 pandemic of like 2020, like this huge societal change and this huge societal upheaval and uprising. That's what it is. You know, this huge uprising happening. They'll be able to hear us, me and you, talking about mashing our dicks windows and getting rich.
Basically.
You know? Yeah.
I mean,
I hate to make it all about something you did. I mean, I've probably done some stuff too that I thought was funny. I just can't remember. I felt like I was always pissed off when I was drunk.
You were very angry.
Right? Like, I was never doing goofy fun stuff. I was just like mad that I had to do something I didn't want to do.
There's that. I think also you would fall asleep before me, or you would always pass out before me. So you would always be irritated if people were up and stuff. You're like, I'm fucking done. Yeah. And I was always impressed by the fact that you would be up early, right? But not because you were full of vim and vigor. It was either probably because you were just fucking couldn't fight the hangover anymore, couldn't sleep through it, or maybe you had gone to bed a few hours before me.
No, I would be so hungover I couldn't continue to sleep. Like, can you imagine? It amazes me because most people sleep through hangovers, and for some reason I would be so hungover it would interrupt my unconsciousness. You know, it wasn't even sleep; it was just unconsciousness. You know. Yeah. Yeah, and then I'd just be up and even angrier that I was up and experiencing the full fucking throttle of the hangover instead of trying to sleep through it, you know? Jesus. And no wonder why I was grouchy. Fucking hell.
But yeah, see, and it feels better to look back on it and laugh than it does to, I mean, and not that there's, and it's hard because, you know, we were talking too about like how we presented ourselves on social media and how we like to be funny or make funny jokes or videos or whatever, and how it doesn't seem as important now, right?
Well, at the beginning of the pandemic, when I was doing my little videos, I was like, hey, we're all in quarantine together. It's super fucking cute. Like, not cute, but like, I was just like, isn't this a funny thing? Like, we're living in history. We're all in a quarantine. You need to like stay home. We're in social distancing. You're bored. I'm bored. We're doing our part. Like, we're positive. Let's keep this moving forward. We do our part, we can get out of this quicker. And here's my little joke and my little scenario that's funny. And now I'm like, I don't even, because I was telling you about how I've been feeling depressed, and you were like, maybe you should do that. And I'm like, I've thought about it, but then I'm like, what? My first one will just be me sitting there being like, you fucking don't listen to me and see what happens. Like, you guys don't pay attention to me, and it fucking gets out of hand. And what jokes do I have now? Like, I can't. We're almost at, we're getting closer every fucking day to like 250,000 dead in the United States, and I'm gonna be like, where are my little jokes now? But I don't want to bring that, dude. That's whatever. That is what it is,
No, but I get it. I get it. I think there's some, I don't know, man. I don't know what the answer is.
Right.
Like, as far
especially during like an uprising. That's what I said too. Like, I don't know how appropriate it is for me to get up there and be like, I'm going to make with the funny now, even though black people are still getting killed at a disproportionate rate, and like, I just didn't feel appropriate. Like, I was just like, let's wait a while, see what happens.
Let's wait a little while.
Make the cat jokes and the fart jokes, whatever I'm doing.
Yeah. But I think that it's the other thing too, and I say this later in the conversation with Jeneta, but like the joke about, here in AA we laugh about our alcoholism, and in Al-Anon they cry about it, and like it's and that seems like kind of a cruel joke, because there's these people who have had alcoholism foisted upon them by people dealing with it, and so like, it's definitely still a disease, I feel, but that doesn't excuse the behavior, and for people who aren't alcoholics and who haven't been in recovery, who are figuring out a whole nother aspect of it, right? How to cope with an alcoholic in your life. Like, I can't fucking imagine that. Like, not being
go ahead. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to
interrupt. Just
not
being afflicted with it, right?
Right.
But also trying to deal with that. And so that's a whole nother thing, man. I'm just talking about the jokes we make in being alcoholics ourselves. And so, but it's true that I can't not joke about it, because otherwise it just seems so grim and sad and like work and chores and steps and all that stuff. And if I'm not at least having a little fun with it, I think there's like there's an Instagram page. It's like the Sarcastic AA book or something like that. The Sarcastic Big Book. And it makes me laugh every once in a while. I don't really, we've talked about the angry, bitter, attacking recovery memes that are really not that much fun.
Right.
But the Sarcastic Big Book is kind of funny. And I think it helps us cope with the changes that we're going through when we're going through recovery. When you're feeling shitty and you're feeling uncomfortable, and it's like, I don't want to fucking do this shit.
Right.
I don't want to deal with my inventory.
Right.
And so, dealing with your ego, I think for me, it helps to laugh at myself and not to take myself too seriously. Because I think taking myself too seriously in recovery is not really, it's not helpful for me. It's not, I mean, there's things that are important and there's things to take serious, but like,
it
can't be a job that I punch in and out of. It has to be something that I can incorporate in my life.
Mm-hmm. I feel like if I took myself seriously all the time, I'd just start drinking again, because I wouldn't have any way to like, I would just be, and I take myself pretty seriously sometimes. Sometimes I do. And it's hard for me to like kind of be the butt of the joke, especially in my family, like my wife, and I do something dumb and she like calls me out on it and I'm feeling very self-righteous at the time. It'll like bother me. And then I'll have to really go, well, what about it bothers you, and step back from it and realize, oh yeah, this is what you're doing is fucking really funny. Like, it's really dumb, because you're all right. Like, taking myself too seriously, I'd just probably start drinking again, because I'd be like, well, I mean, I got no other way to relieve this pressure of this very serious business that is me,
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So
I try not to, at least. Who knows?
You can't. Not for long, right? And that's the other thing is, like, if I was serious all the time, I would definitely be looking for that relief, and I would look for it in alcohol eventually. And I don't think that I don't want to say that I'm never going to go there, because I really don't know that, but I don't think that I'm at the point where I would think about drinking as a solution.
Right.
I think that my eyes are open enough. I mean, I haven't been to a meeting in 3 months, which kind of I felt this morning when I got up and I was like, this is really, I guess it's been bothering me more than I thought.
Right. Like I haven't done the Zoom thing in a few months and I've been feeling it too. So I'm like, dang, I got to get back out there and open up the iPad and be like, all right, here we go. Let's do the fucking wave, you know?
Right. And so I think that it's important for me to be aware of those things and those feelings, right? And I don't have to, before it gets to the point where it's too serious, before it gets to a point where it's like too detrimental to my daily life, and I'm just before it gets to the point where I'm like, fuck it. Because
fuck it, yeah.
If I say fuck it, then I'm in trouble. Then I'm Then I have removed all tools, all ideas, all steps that I can take to not say fuck it. Humor being one of those. I don't know.
I think you got mints?
No, and this is the thing. I think it's just allergies, and so it's like you can probably hear it in my voice, those people listening. There's like a little tickle in my nose or something, and I'm fucking freaked out, right? Because I'm like,
are you eating shitloads of zinc? Don't eat a bunch of zinc.
Don't eat too much zinc. I mean, they're just little fisherman's friends. Is that too much?
Oh, no, that's not zinc. Those are just like lozenges. No, I thought you were just mashing. I thought you were either eating mints or like just mashing out multivitamins. And I'm like, you're going to pee antifreeze.
No.
Antifreeze? I don't know how to pronounce it. Antifa freeze?
Antifa freeze.
I just thought you were mashing mints the whole time. And I'm like, dang, dude, you're just feeling minty today.
Well, and I don't want to suck on a mint while I'm talking on the microphone, but I find that if I put one of these little mentholated things like in the back of my mouth, like I just breathe a little bit better. And so again, I don't think it's anything other than a little tickle in my nose, but because I don't feel any quote unquote symptoms of
but although they would make some interesting podcasts, right? Like,
I mean, yeah. Thank you, but
no, not on your end. I was even thinking on like either of our ends. If one of us got sick, just to like podcast it.
I don't think I would stop.
You'd feel so fucking shit though. But yeah, you know, when my family had it, the last thing I think they thought about doing was a podcast. Well, they don't know how podcasts work though. Well, I'm like, it's like radio on the internet. It's like a radio show. Yeah.
So I think that if I was to fall ill in any real way, I would still try to carry on, even if we did a short one, you know?
Yeah. And also, I didn't mean to call you out in front of everybody. I just didn't. You just kept going back to the thing. So I was like, do you have like chocolate covered Altoids right now? Is that how you're rolling? Like, I didn't know what you had. I was like, what treat do you have over there? And you're like, fisherman friends. They're delicious. Friends.
Which, I mean, I've gotten used to them. I just like the mentholated like bit. And I've also found, here's the other thing. So when you wear a mask or a bandana or whatever you wear, and I pop one of these, the airflow is fresher. Yeah. So it's nicer than, because I'm already kind of covered up.
I've stank up a mask. Like Megan and I, we'll take the dog for a walk, right? And even though we're outside, we still will wear our masks. We take the dog up to the cemetery by my house because no one walks in the cemetery because it's full of dead people, you know?
Yeah.
So we can go up there and take our masks off and just kind of freely walk without having to run into other people. But we'll wear our masks all the way up to the cemetery, and I wear like a paper N95 mask, and I can just smell. Yeah, I could smell my stank. Like I'm like, damn, Jerry, like maybe you shouldn't have eaten all that fucking garlic hummus before you went on a walk. That's a good idea, though. I'm gonna eat a mint. Have you also noticed too when you're done with the day and you take the mask off, everything smells really strong and really good. Like you can smell the grass and the trees and stuff. So
yeah.
That's the one thing I look forward to while wearing a mask is every time I remove it, like my house smells like my house, but stronger, you know, because I've deadened my smell, you know. Yeah. So there's humor in that. You can become a super smeller if you wear a mask and do your part and don't get other people sick. You ding dong.
Yeah. Ding dong. So I think that
your doorbell.
That's what I do with the mints with the fisherman's friends. That's why. So
this helps your podcasting performance, is what you're saying.
Correct. Yeah. But I have always as far as I've always been a fan of humor, and I've always been a fan of comedy, and I've always liked to laugh and make people laugh and all that kind of stuff. And I think that it's a pretty easy transition in recovery to crack jokes at the dumb shit we all used to do.
Yes.
You know.
Yes.
Stuff like, you know, going to the different liquor stores, like, so that you don't get caught, or so that the clerk at one liquor store doesn't think you're there all the time, even though he knows you're there twice a week, and that's enough to know.
Right. Like you're some incognito alcoholic fucking master of disguise. Like you're like, oh man, I really fooled this guy today. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Even though he's like, this is the second time you've been in this week for a fucking bottle of Rumplemints at like 11 a.m.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Come on. You
like,
only need to do that once.
Yeah, like once, really. Not even once a week. Like, you only just need to do that shit once in your life. Like, oh, man, we're having a hot chocolate party tonight. Better get some rumpy. You know, not every Wednesday.
Right.
That guy comes in here really sad, and he wants a bottle of Rumplemints.
Having a lot of hot chocolate parties these days. It's the middle of summer. You know?
Having a hot chocolate party in my car at 10 a.m. It's
right,
me
exactly.
Yeah, dude.
Jesus.
Or in my case, I didn't even drive, so this is having a hot chocolate party on my bike, on the bike path.
God damn.
Yeah, dude. Just pulling off.
Did you ever drink? You used to drink and ride your bike all the time, right?
All the time, yeah. I would ride my bike home from work. I'd get a bottle of fucking bourbon and ride back to work, or ride home from work on the bike path, and then I'd get to like one of the bridges under the freeway where it was dark, and kind of pull off and open up my bag and unscrew the cap and take like 4 slugs really quick, and then put it back, and then get back on the bike and start trucking. I would do it all the time. Mm-hmm. I used to get drunk on my bike. I've had bike accidents from being so drunk, which I imagine other people have had too, like bad bike crashes, like fucked up.
Oh man, it's terrifying.
Yeah. I mean, you mix a drink and put it in the little fucking thermos and put it in your cup holder. And you're like, Mama, afternoon ride. And then the afternoon ride ends up at the bar. You know what I mean? And then you're like, I don't even know what dimension I'm in right now. I guess I'm taking a cab home, maybe? I don't know. Is this a cab?
I don't know. Where's my bike? Yeah, whatever.
I mean, there's a hot dog in my pocket, but that's fucking cool, I guess.
I used to have I remember having a chicken tender in my inside coat pocket that I stole from some restaurant or something like that.
Tender, you're just like, bam, I need to sober up real quick. I'm gonna take this.
Exactly. I would just have a little piece of fried chicken in my pocket, like, Jesus Christ.
Yeah, dude, I did that at a Halloween party when I was wearing a suit. It was my go-to Halloween costume. Usually, was just put a suit on and I'm Halloween or whatever. And I remember being at the hors d'oeuvre table, just stuffing broccoli and cheese in my pockets, and then being out on the dance floor dancing with Megan and taking broccoli out of my pockets and eating it because I was too drunk to dance. So I'm like, yo, if I get some broccoli in my system and some cheese, I have the backup in my pocket. Yeah.
So it's like we're just so filled with ridiculous stories, and the behavior is absolutely ridiculous, and a lot of it wasn't. Oh, I don't know. I want to say that some of it wasn't hugely detrimental. There was a lot of humor. There was a lot of funny. There was a lot of laughter. There was a lot of like just cracking jokes and having a good time. And I don't want to discount any of those things.
Right.
But I do know that it was part of me avoiding other issues in my life that were detrimental to me.
That just maybe needed attention. Do you know what I mean?
I was ignoring them.
That attention, ignoring them, yeah. And also, I want to just double back real quick and just say, like, don't get me wrong, I'll still put a McDonald's cheeseburger in my back pocket. I don't give a fuck, dude. I will. I'll save it for later. I've done it. Like, I'll just tuck this cheeseburger here. It's kind of a lot of calories, but I'll take a couple bites if I'm feeling low blood sugar. Yeah.
And save it for later.
Yeah.
So yeah, we can still be ridiculous in our sobriety. We can still be fucking absurd in our recovery.
Pockets, like I got the cheeseburgers.
It just makes the bumps a little bit easier when they come.
Yeah, you just like if my wife was like, "I'm leaving you," and then I just took a cheeseburger out of my inside pocket, took a bite, and then put it back in, and like, I get it. I understand why.
I understand.
I just needed that little lukewarm pickle.
Yes, the pickle.
Yeah.
Oh, I haven't had McDonald's in a long time.
I've had it a few weeks.
I'm not gonna judge you for it. I mean,
No, you should. I treat myself every once in a while. I'm like, this blows out my fucking budget for the day, but fuck it.
Right.
Yeah, I'll go home and I'll still enjoy my day. Maybe I'll drink a lot of water.
But
Yeah.
Important.
That's my budget right there. That's my compromise. You get to drink a
budget.
shitload of water later, Jerry. It'll be awesome.
But yeah, I think it's good. And there's live, laugh, love, right?
Live, laugh, love, dude. Gotta live, laugh, love, live, laugh, love. Love, laugh, live. TikTok's turning us both into socialists.
Yes, basically.
We're living, laugh, loving. That's where the joke, that live, laugh, love. Have you seen that one yet?
Yes, I have. Mm-hmm.
Well, I'm not going to describe memes on a podcast, but goddamn.
Yeah. So, but I have found is like one good thing that you can do. So social media, and maybe it's an overload for a lot of people with everything that's going on. It's an overload, even if you are active and interested and want to stay informed and want to be a part of a solution. I found that like what I'll do is I'll go online, I'll go into Instagram or I'll go into TikTok and I'll just type in birds, right? And I'll be like birds of TikTok. And so then I'll just spend some time and I'll just scroll through birds. And I'll look at all these cool birds.
Searched on TikTok yet.
Yeah.
I didn't even realize you could search.
You can search for anything. You can search for whatever. You can search for tattooists probably, or whatever.
I don't look at that. I really don't. I'd just be like butts.
I got enough of those.
Whose butt? Anybody's butt. I don't care. Just all butts.
You can look butts. You can look for birds. You can look for whatever.
Birds or butts. Birds butts. Maybe birds coming out of butts.
Birds coming out of butts. Monkeys fly out of butts.
I do love that you're like, you can look up tattooers. I'm like, no, I got enough of that shit in my life.
Right.
Like even on Instagram, I'm actually purging some tattooers just because I'm like, yeah, how many fucking different tigers can I look at? Like I've been following more painters, like other artists, like fine artists and stuff. Tattooing still interests me, but I mean, how many times can I see a fucking whatever? You know what I mean? Like the same image over and over again.
You know what I would love to see, and not that it's really any of my business how you spend your time, but I'll just put it to you in a different way. I really enjoyed the time-lapse photography of you painting.
Oh yeah, and I
thought that was super cool.
I have not figured out the right tripod setup for it yet.
Okay.
I have a ring light that has like a little tripod thing on it but I haven't figured out where to position the camera because I paint at an easel. I don't paint sitting because it hurts my back to sit down to paint now too, so I do a lot of painting standing up. And it's really hard to position it the right way without crashing into the camera because I move a lot too when I paint. Like I back up and look at it. And so as soon as I can figure out, like maybe get a gooseneck tripod or something that I can click to the easel that you can get the image in. I bought a gooseneck one a while ago, but it broke because it was a cheap piece of junk from Amazon. So as soon as I can figure that out, you're going to get a lot more of those because I feel like people are really interested in seeing the process. It's like one thing to be like, look at what I made. And everyone's like, good job, Jerry. You're the best. We love you. And then it's another thing to be like, watch me make this thing. People find that are a lot more interested in that. And to me, it's even fulfilling for me to look at it and be like, wow. So that's how you do it, Jerry. It's sped up. You know, that's how you do it fast. Yeah.
Well, I was just impressed by, I was like, oh, because you usually do like these. Yeah. You do these huge pieces. And it never occurred to me that like you would need somewhere to rest the side of your hand.
Oh yeah, the molly stick.
Paint. So what's it called? The molly stick?
I call it a molly stick. It might be called a mole stick. I think it's a maul. Actually, it's a maul, M-A-H-L, a maul stick. But I call it a molly stick because I'm wild, dude. I don't care about rules.
Molly. So it was like this cool. I was like, oh, that's fucking awesome because it's kind of like I would only know this like when I'm writing a letter. I'm filling out an envelope, and if I wrote who I was writing it to first, and then put the butt of my hand up to put my own address, then I would get ink smeared all over. And I was like, oh, that's why you need a molly stick so that you don't smear the paint that you're working on. Otherwise, you're not getting in there and being all super like I can't touch anything.
Sign painters use it mostly, and other fine artists when they're working on big work with oil because oil takes a long time to dry. And I work most primarily in acrylic, but I put additives into the acrylic sometimes to slow down the drying process so I can play with the shading and stuff. And so, but if you want to see fascinating time-lapse videos, I'll send you some stuff. Sign painters are the most fascinating people for me personally to watch paint. I love watching sign painters paint because it's just, and it's a lot of that stick and just watching this thing just kind of happen boldly.
Create.
Yeah.
Cool.
And I laugh the whole time. Laugh and laugh.
Laugh and laugh. So I think that's good. I think that's our program for today. Stay tuned. our discussion. Did you enjoy our discussion with Jeneta?
Yeah, I don't really talk very much during the interviews because you ask really good questions. I just kind of laugh and agree. But and then you always ask me, do you want to ask questions? Like, no, man, because you're really good at it. And I'd just be like, what's your favorite animal or some, I don't know. I'm like, yo, you ever keep a cheeseburger in your pocket and eat it?
I think I'm gonna write that down. That should be the next. You ever had a cheeseburger in your pocket and ate it? Are you a real alcoholic? Have you ever had fast food in your clothes?
Are you a real alcoholic? That's the first question you should open every interview with from now on. Mm-hmm. Are you a real alcoholic though?
And like, can you prove it to me, please?
Yeah, prove it.
Have you ever pissed yourself during a family holiday?
You ever piss on someone else when they didn't want
you? Right.
Yeah. Yes,
Yes, I have. I'm a real alcoholic. My name's John, and I'm an alcoholic.
Well, have a seat. We got a podcast for you.
Yes. Yeah. So thank you. Enjoy the rest of the show.
Yeah.
We'll see you guys next week.
Thanks, guys. All right. Thanks, John.
Bye. Thank you for doing this. I appreciate it. We won't take up too much of your time.
Oh, you're fine.
But so for those of you who don't know, Jeneta St. Clair was on our show before. She is a comedian and among many other things, I'm sure, and delight as always. And I wanted to talk to you about comedy and recovery is our theme for today's show. And I thought, who better to ask than you?
So nice.
So I guess I would want to ask you how you feel, if at all, that your comedy has changed from when you were drinking. You know, was drinking like, was it fodder for comedy? Was it like jokes and whatever and getting hammered and stuff like that, as it often is for some of us? And how has it shifted?
Yeah, that's really funny. It's shifted, but also it's kind of made it funnier now that I am sober because it's not sad. I think before it was so sad. Like I remember writing a sketch that was specifically around a person, like just basically a person in their bottom. Like I would pull out different size Jack Daniels in the sketch, and I think it was also a way for me to drink while performing.
Right.
That I was like integrating this into my comedy as a way to be like, isn't it funny? And also I can make drinking on stage part of a performance. And then when I got sober and I started doing stand-up comedy and like using my comedy, even from when I first started like 2.5 years ago to now, I'm even noticing more how I'm not making, like I'm not a big fan of like self-deprecating comedy. So I'm using a lot of my jokes in a different way. But it's still like hilarious to think about how I used to be and how I am now, which is a huge part of like my comedy and what I use with my recovery. But also even, you know, I feel like in recovery, you're constantly changing, right? You're becoming somebody different almost every single day. So I could look back at like before quarantine and the type of comedy I was doing to the type of comedy I would do now with everything going on. And what I actually find funny, and also what I feel like is important for me to talk about, I guess. So yeah, is that hilarious? I don't know.
Totally.
Are we dying laughing? Is that what's happening?
Yeah, I feel like we do, like there's this one joke in AA where they talk about in AA we laugh about it, whereas in Al-Anon they cry about it, right? And they're like, oh, this is where we come to laugh, and in Al-Anon is where they go to cry about us, right? And so
is that so insensitive that I find that hilarious?
Well, no, and that's kind of the point, is that there's this, I don't know, so, and I guess, you know, and everybody, I don't claim to, you know, promote AA or anything like that or represent it, but there's always this sort of this sense of, well, we kind of have to pull the scab off and like deal with the wound so that we can heal from it. And part of that, some of that insensitivity toward ourselves and each other in what is often like a safe space of a recovery room, you know?
Yeah,
So,
for sure.
I just, I don't think being, I don't know if it's insensitive or not. I'm certainly it's insensitive to somebody, but you know, it's like we're just trying to deal with this the best way we can.
Yeah.
And I,
Yeah.
I think when you're in a lot of pain, even just to get a cheap laugh is helpful.
Oh,
You
yeah.
know?
For sure. I think it's interesting because I was just on a call before this and I actually brought up my recovery because I work for a company called Laughter on Call, and we bring and use comedy tools to connect people.
Mhm.
And what we find is really important is being honest. And so today, like, the theme was, what is something you're proud of? And I was like, oh, I'm really proud of my recovery, but what's a way I can make this funny, right? So I was like with a group of people that aren't in recovery, but I was like, oh, yeah, I realized that me knowing where Whiskey Wednesday is not something that has to define me anymore. Whereas before I thought that, like, the fact that I knew every happy hour, the fact that I knew all this stuff
Mhm.
was really like made me cool. And then when I got sober, I realized, oh, that doesn't have to define who I am, and that I can be, I don't know, just like a better version of myself, which also I didn't understand at first in recovery. But I don't know. There's just something like when I went into the rooms and I heard people share just like things that I experienced. Like I remember somebody saying like, I would have to make sure I went to the liquor store before I went to something because I knew it would be closed by the time I got out. So I'd have to like have a wine bottle in my backpack. And I was like, I always went to 7-Eleven before I went to my bartending gig.
Yeah.
Even though I was going to drink at my bartending gig, for sure, I needed something when I got home. And I just, and then being able to like laugh about that with other people, which is just showing a form of connection. And I'm
Mhm.
so grateful that now too, like I get to use that in my job, which is like not only on stage and doing my own comedy, but also in the company that I work for, is using that connection that you have with somebody, that shared laughter, in order to connect. And it just helps so much to feel a part of and not less than or separate from. And in the rooms, being able to do that, and even, you know, just with people on the street or whatever, being able to laugh about something that you both have in common, it just like connects you in a certain way. So yeah, I think it's hilarious that that they, but I mean, for their own reasons. I remember the first time I went to I'm like breaking anonymity. Well, the first time I went to an Al-Anon meeting, I sat down and somebody had shared just about how they hated alcoholics. And I was like, that's hilarious because I am, and I'm sitting right next to you. And it's just like showing
Mhm.
how, you know, everybody's different in their own ways. Like everybody's dealing with things in their own, I don't know, however they need to. And I don't know, for us in our recovery, that's just, we find it hilarious, and that helps us get better. And so whatever you need to like be better, get better. I don't know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I once walked into on accident. It was like a Alano club, and I walked into an Al-Anon meeting, and before I could even sit down, the woman stood up, looked at me, and she said, "No, no, the AA meeting is down the hall." And
Just tell by your face.
there were no words, nothing. No, that's all she said to me. And I said, "Oh, thank you very much." Like she could tell what I was there for. She's like, "No, you look like an alcoholic. I know them." And so and that was kind of this moment, and I was just kind of laughing in my head, and I was like, that was so funny to me. And so
Yeah.
it's just I've found it to be extremely helpful. And not that there isn't, it's very serious business when you get down to it, and when you're, like you said, you're changing every single day and making a decision to not drink, and a decision to be a better person, and to kind of let all that stuff go.
Mm-hmm.
But to not be able to laugh about who you were, it's not making, I think too, it's not making fun of other people. It's rarely am I,
Yeah, no.
I'm never like, oh, look at that. Even in when I work in a restaurant and I see drunk people, and I'm just always like, yep, that's that. And it's more
Yeah.
about making fun of myself, right?
Yeah.
In,
Yeah. And I think we have to find the humor in it because it's it's really, can I curse? It's fucking sad. Okay, great. Mm-hmm. I do all the time. Also, I never say curse, but that's where we are right now. I have to fucking laugh. I have to, or else I am just going to be sad all of the time about it. It's really sad. Recovery is really sad. Trauma is really sad. Most of us, if not all of us, drink because of our trauma, because of something that happened to us, or like a buildup of things that we needed an escape from. Addiction is just an escape from pain. And, now we have to feel everything. There's like this bit that I love doing, but nobody gets it unless they're in the recovery. But it's like, it must be really nice for you non-alcoholics to go home and like, you had a hard day and you can have a glass of wine. You know what I have to do? Like, feel it. Like, I just have to like feel it. Like, that's what we have to do all the time is just feel. And I'm grateful for that, but that doesn't mean it's easy. Like, I'll have great weeks and then I'll have like shitty weeks where I'm just like in this abandonment, obsession, self-pity, victimhood, like whatever it is, just feeling all of my trauma. And then I know, though, that feeling that there's going to be something beautiful on the other side. There's going to be a lesson that I've learned. There's going to be some sort of experience that I get to have from that pain. But, when you're using all the time, you're just like suppressing that and just shoving it down. Mm-hmm. And now we're like letting that be exposed. And so, there's always that saying like comedy, or what is it? Tragedy plus time equals comedy.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And so that's what it is. So I don't know. I think like we actually talk about that in my company too, because we started working with people that had Alzheimer's and dementia, and we still do. But it was like, yeah, we get it. Everybody gets it. It's sad. It's really sad, but it doesn't have to be sad all the time. There can be room for lightness and humor and levity. And that's like just how I feel about my life is I can't always be like in the like darkness of what it means and the pain. And it's like, yeah, I get it. I feel it. Trust me. I feel it. Mm-hmm. But I gotta laugh about it.
Yeah. So also, and I know that you probably haven't been doing a whole lot of shows during this, the last few months.
Ouch, but no, not at all.
No. And I only say that because my next question is, when you work in a business which is almost always connected to a bar, how does that affect your comedy? How does that affect your job as a comedian to be in an environment that is constantly putting 2 drink minimums on people? And I don't know what the rate of alcoholism in comedians is, but I imagine it's fairly high.
John.
I don't know, but I'm just wondering how you cope with those things in your work environment.
Yeah, I mean,
or if it's even a big deal at all.
For me personally, the obsession has lifted, as we all hear, sometimes in the rooms. For me, it really has. And I don't, as long as I stay in the middle, as long as I stay connected to like my sobriety, my therapy, my, people in the program, people that just like sober people, it just really, it keeps me in the middle, but it's really, it can be challenging. The thing for me is I quit smoking cigarettes before I quit drinking. So I quit smoking cigarettes, and then I was like, oh, I'll just smoke weed all the time and that'll help. And it didn't. And then I ended up getting sober, but weed has been something. Weed and cigarettes are the two that are probably a little bit more like around. And, everybody's sobriety is different, and I'm not judging anyone for whatever they choose to do. But for me, that's where I can see the tipping point a little bit. Because if I'm around the comedy world so much and I'm not in my other world, I can quickly get consumed by like, oh, maybe I can. Oh, maybe it's okay. And so I just have to be aware of that. So I was for a while, like I would hit, I would do this mic crawl. It was my way of feeling like I was still bar crawling, but I was hitting open mics because I like miss bar crawls so much. But I would do a bunch of open mics. And then I realized at the end I would feel so depleted. So I had to find that balance of only hitting like 2 or 3 mics a night and not going crazy, because I would go crazy. And I would think like, oh, maybe I can do this or maybe I can do that. And then also, there's something else I wanted to say about that. Oh, I did a show in San Francisco at a brewery. And there was a moment where I did my, like my first bit is kind of starts like right into it. Like I get into childhood trauma, I get into PTSD, I get into depression, I get into alcoholism, and make it funny. And there was some guy there that kind of laughed. And so I was like, which I wasn't getting much laughter because I'm in a brewery talking about alcoholism and they don't want to hear that. You find your rooms. Wasn't that one. And this guy kind of chuckled at something I said. So I pointed to him. I'm like, he gets it. And I could tell he goes, I was like, oh, are you you're an alcoholic too? And he goes, I mean, not yet. Like, I don't know really. And I was like, oh, fuck. I was like, I was trying to call this guy out. I was like, sorry. So, you have those moments and maybe he'll talk about it one day in his shares. I don't know. But yeah, it's, there's a time and place. I've done rooms that are AA rooms and like, I've never had a better experience. And I think for a long time, I was really trying to like make my comedy so broad that anybody could laugh at it. And then I realized like, why don't I just stick at what I'm good at? Like, this is what works for me. And I'll have a quote fan base. I hate that, but I'll have people around me that find that funny. And I don't have to like modify who I am for everybody to fit. So it works for some people. It's really cool. Sometimes I'll talk about it on stage and I'll get somebody that's like, I have 30 days and like, I'm out here at a comedy show and, it's just been really hard. And it just feels like that's why we do this, right? It's like we get to also be of service to other people.
Right.
Yeah. So I don't know. It's interesting. When I first got sober, sorry if I'm talking too much, but I guess this is a podcast.
Yes.
Yeah. It's usually
you were invited to talk.
Too much, so yeah.
Oh boy, that's probably some trauma right there. So anyway, I being a woman, don't talk. So basically, when I got sober on Christmas Eve of 2017, and I was reading Tiffany Haddish's book. I think it's called The Last Black Unicorn. I might have been. Anyway, I was reading her book, and her book is so honest. I don't know if either of you have read it, but it's really incredible, and it's very honest and very raw. And I was telling somebody about this the other day because they had asked like, oh, what was your story into getting into the rooms or like getting sober? And I was like, I was reading this book and I feel like before we get in, we're like trying to find identity outside of it. We're trying to connect. We're trying to find humor, right? Like we're trying to find people that we can relate to. And I'm reading this book about a comedian that's talking about her childhood trauma, her tragedy, but making it light and funny. And then I get sober and like 3 days after I got sober, without knowing like I'm getting sober, I go to the Improv and I see Tiffany Haddish perform. And it was the first time that somebody came up to me and was like, hey, what can I get you? We have a 2-drink minimum. And I was like, what do I do with my hands? I don't know how to do this. And it was like the first time I had to be like, oh yeah, I'll have a virgin daiquiri, or I don't know what I had, but like a soda water and lime. I mean, how do you do this? But yeah, I just think I didn't even think about how like serendipitous or like, higher powerness of that was that I was like looking for that. And I had my first moment in a comedy club. I don't know. It's just pretty crazy.
Yeah.
And so when you talk about service and you talk about comedy and you were able to put these two things together, and can you talk a little bit about Laughter on Call and what it is and what you do there?
Yeah, so I'm the COO of this company. It's called Laughter on Call, and we started bringing comedians and using comedians' tools to connect people that had Alzheimer's or dementia with their loved ones or the staff, caregivers. And so we started really in the senior community, and with everything that's going on, we immediately transferred to Zoom, like everybody did. And we started this lunchtime laughter series where we had like caregivers or their families, because a lot of these senior day programs basically stopped. And then a lot of these seniors in these homes were getting super isolated. And our whole thing is about like breaking isolation. And now they're even more isolated than they were before. And so we started doing Zoom, and we're still doing it. We're doing this lunchtime laughter Monday through Friday. And we use like every day is different. We do like show and tell, storytelling, stand up, improv, manic Mondays. But it's just about connection through shared laughter. And from that, we are now branching out, and we're doing it for corporations and for kids, and using the same comedic tools to create connection through shared laughter. So, so I can't believe that I get to do that for a living on top of also doing comedy and acting. Like it's pretty crazy. So yeah, that's what we do. It's just, so we've been on Zoom now. We just had our 75th episode, doing it, because we started right away. And it's just the people that we've brought on are all walks of life from all places in the United States, sometimes outside of the United States. We've had people from like Canada, Mexico, Alaska, Australia. Like we'll just have, it's crazy. So I'm really lucky. I'm really fortunate that I get to do that, to be of service in that way as well.
That's awesome. Yeah. That's really cool.
Yeah.
Well, I don't want to take up too much more of your time, but I appreciate you coming on here and chatting with us, and it's always nice to talk with you. And I appreciate you being a part of this.
Yeah, thank you so much. I really appreciate it. This is awesome.
Cool.
Cool.
Well, have a great day. Stay safe down there.
Thanks.
And hopefully we'll be able to see you at a club sometime sooner
soon.
than
Are
later.
You still in Napa?
Sonoma. Yeah.
Sonoma. Yeah, that's it.
But
okay, cool. How are you guys doing up there? I don't know if this is unrelated.
No, that's fine. That's totally fine.
Cool.
We're doing fine as far as the COVID thing goes. Jerry lives in Oregon, and it's a little bit hot up there right now, but so we do what we can. We stay as sheltered as we can, and
Yeah. I think we just got a huge lockdown from Newsom today, so we'll find out what's going on in LA. But I know we went from like, we're open to now we're completely closed again, which is, I mean, I could go on and on about it. But
yeah, we could too.
Yeah, we often do. We don't record it all. It's just too much anger and resentment. Well,
because people are like, when are they going to start talking about their alcoholism? And I'm like, well, we got to talk about the pandemic for about 45 minutes. Will you give it a break?
Yeah. Well, I feel like it's all integrated. And then on top of it, it's, we're going through a revolution at the same time.
Absolutely,
which, to me, makes so much sense because for me, I don't know about you, but like basically when we went into a pandemic, everything got stripped away from me in terms of like, I used to go out and hit clubs and mics every single night. So I went from like every night being full to having so much free time. And then from that, it was like, oh, this is when it's like, look at your real shit that you haven't been looking at as like an alcoholic. So it was like, all of this was bubbling up. So of course, at the same time, all of it's going to be bubbling up for everybody because you don't have these like vices or these addictions to like cover it anymore.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And so it's like, even though it's obviously tragic, but it's also really fucking awesome that we get to live in a time where we're witnessing it like happening and change is actually happening. So
I appreciate your optimism. And I'm gonna take a little bit of that for today because it's been tough to find these days.
Yeah. I mean, change, it's all part of it, right? We're just constantly shifting and changing. I don't know. This is how I feel today. I did not feel this way last week, so you caught me on a good day. I was like all in it last week. So yeah.
Cool. Well, I'm glad that it shifts and changes. So we can...
Yeah.
Jeneta, thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
All right. We'll talk to you soon. Bye-bye.
Okay. Bye.
Thanks again for listening. Our music, as always, is by Neglect. You can find more of his stuff at neglect.bandcamp.com.
And you can find us on all social media platforms that matter: Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter. And you can reach us at aisforalcoholic@gmail.com.
Talk to you later.
Yeah.